The World Health Organization is warning that at least 99% of the global population is breathing air that exceeds the, in fact, pollution, essentially, that exceeds what is allowed as far as air quality limits are concerned. This is millions of people worldwide die each year, we're told, from preventable environmental causes related to air pollution. Let's take this further. We're joined tonight by University of Johannesburg Environmental Management Department's Kristy Langerman, as well as the South Durban Community Environmental Alliance's Desmond D'Sa. My thanks to you both and welcome to the program. Kristy, if I can begin with you. For context here in South Africa, just how clean is our air on average?
Well, I would say about 99% of our population is also breathing air that isn't healthy for them. So in a global context, we're probably worse than a lot of the developed countries, but on a par with many developing countries. We still have a long way to go until we have air that doesn't harm our people.
And Desmond, that's why you are doing a lot of the space in the environmental space. How have you assessed South Africa's response to the issue of pollution, especially in areas such as Durban, KZN, which is quite industrialized?
Well, good evening, everyone. And let me just say from the outset, 2 health studies in Durban in 2002 and 2007 confirmed that the air in the area was very high. People were breathing in toxic chemicals, and as a result of that, learners and educators at local primary schools, the asthma rate was 53%, and of the 53%, over more than 50% had chronic asthma. And that's directly related to the high levels of chemicals emitted from the chemical and petrochemical industries in the area. And so most of our population, we've got to sit at night, parents have to sit at night and grandparents have to wipe down the brows of children that are running with high temperatures. Not easy to get to private hospitals because of the poor transport system, and the transport system ends at about 8 o'clock at night. So there are serious impacts of it. We know for a fact that the chemicals have emitted also have caused high levels of cancer, brain cancer, pancreas, breast cancer amongst our population in South Durban. So it's quite innocuous that the government has put aside a huge amount of money, but what is lacking is the political will. The data is already indicating that the high levels of pollution has a dire effect on the population in South Durban. We've seen it recently on the Vaal. We've seen the South Gauteng High Court rule against Eskom and other polluting industries there. And, we're waiting with a bated breath. What's going to happen? How is government going to carry out the court's direction that the lives of people are very critical and important, and it's very important for people to breathe in clean air.
And just on
these are problems.
Desmond, on the ailments you mentioned, you said children becoming sick and asthma cases as well in areas that are close to, for example, the petrochemical operations in KZN, right? How easy is it to link directly the illnesses to what's going on there with the pollution situation?
Well, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to know this. During COVID, level 5, all the industries were closed. No one was coughing. No one was affected. Everyone was breathing in fresh air. That was the period when, when the industry, when all those smokestacks, over 1,500 smokestacks were all shut. You could see the city of Durban 60 kilometers away. And when you came into the city and lived in the city, you never smelt any of those nasty chemicals that we have to breathe in and live with every day for the last 60 or 70 years since the industrialization that took place in 1931. And, some of the refineries are aged and they've been exploding. We've had huge explosions in South Durban as well as north of Durban. And when these chemical industries explode, then you're really breathing high levels of hydrocarbons, unburned hydrocarbons, plus what the World Health Standard has now identified as a major incident, the NOxes, 2.5 and 10. If that gets into your system, not only is your respiratory illness, is your respiratory organs affected, but it also, if it enters into your veins, then you can imagine what heart stresses and problems you have, because it blocks the flow of blood circulating throughout your body.
Kristy, let me come back to you. Who is most responsible for pollution in South Africa, and are those individuals and companies being held accountable enough?
So that's a really good question, but I think you're getting to the heart there of why it's such a difficult problem to address. And there are some obvious large industrial power generation sources, but there are also so many smaller sources. The NOx that the World Health Organization has highlighted, the main source of that is vehicle emissions. So all of us who own a vehicle are partly responsible for that one. A lot of domestic fuel burning, particularly in low-income communities. If you have service delivery failures and waste isn't removed, you get waste burning. Certain times of the year we have felt fires. So the sources are many, and that is why it is such a difficult problem to address. But what the major source is the burning of fossil fuels. So that should be where our number one focus is.
And the flip side of that is always that those who are pro-fossil fuels and the industries that benefit from that say that without that, the communities who are also affected by the pollution would be without jobs. How true is that, Kristy?
Well, so you're right. I mean, that's why we often have communities who live close to mines or power stations, or there's the same communities who are fighting for those facilities to stay open. And we're also finding, which we saw during COVID as well, that if households lose their income, then they can't use electricity, which at a household level is a relatively clean source of energy, and they resort to using much dirtier fuels like coal, paraffin, or wood, which exacerbates the air pollution problem. So that's why in finding a way forward, we have to very carefully balance the economic needs with the environmental needs. I think, but prioritizing the most vulnerable members of our society, which is who Desmond has been talking about. Often it's lower income communities. Their health facilities aren't as good. They have a less of a voice in society, and they're subjected to the worst pollution levels.
So, Desmond, what do you think will happen with the communities that you work with in the Durban area if, as Kristy's saying, they're not prioritized, especially as far as the safeguard and the protection of their health is concerned? And also, I'd like your thoughts on the idea that it's basically a toss-up between no pollution or no income.
Well, look, let me start with saying that the vast majority of people, Durban's got a population of over 4 million. South Durban has got a population of 2 million. You find that over 50% of that population is unemployed and sitting at home. The chemical industry has shed jobs over the years. And when they were presenting in Parliament, it's clear that they're not a big employment for all communities. So while they make huge profits, they do not employ a lot of our people. And when you talk about the skill, there's huge amount of skills in the townships that have built these refineries, but never get employed. So that's one part of it. The second part is that people are wised up enough now. They've realized that they've had to pay for the externalization costs that has been meted out by profit makers. So in emitting their pollution into people's lungs, they've externalized the costs and pushed the burden on poor people, who they're fully aware do not have the huge medical benefits and have never benefited out of medical or even pension from these petrochemical industries. We're now seeing that those very same people who are unemployed do not have to go with begging bowls to the government and apply for a government pension, because the industry that they work for, they were casual laborers. It's what Fatima Mir said in 1993. 2001. She said that they were worse than slaves. At least the slave knew the master. to the industries, no one knows who is employing them, because if you go to the big chemical company, they say, no, I don't employ them. So you have to go down the ladder to find out who's employing these people, and only to find that the benefits of unemployment, of taxes is not paid in. Because if you're unemployed for a certain amount of years, and if you've been paying unemployment, you are due for an unemployment rebate. If you've been paying tax, you get the tax man rebating you. But this has not happened in most of these companies, and the big industry says, well, they wash their hands. It's nothing to do with us. We are not employing people. And if you get injured, it's even worse. Then you're sitting at home injured and you have a family to feed. Sometimes 6 to 10 mouths of people that are going to bed hungry. So the chemical and petrochemical industry has not benefited the masses of our people. And when you talk about energy for who's benefiting out of this energy? Who are the people that really benefit? If you look at all those communities that live alongside these big power stations, who live alongside all the mining communities that I've gone through in KZN, you will find they do not have access to the grid. They are drinking water with the cattle that are dying because the water is highly polluted with the toxic ash that comes from the mines. And that means that the 2.5, the NOxes, are really in the water, and we're finding mercury and cyanide when we're having the water tested. So that's not a life to lead. That's not a quality of life that people fought for in this country. What has happened is that those that make profits are better off because they've captured the governments. And there's no political will from our government to act in the interest of society to bring about change. Yes, we understand jobs are needed, but we also understand that the coal industry, the fossil fuel industry is coming to an end. How do we get there? How do we transition this in a just manner so that we save jobs? We're also worried about the jobs because ghost towns basically appear overnight. So it has to be done in a proper way. And we need the industry to talk to us and government. And that does not happen with the Shell and BP industry shutting its doors and just kicking workers off the site without talking to no community, not talking to anybody. What is going to happen with the workers that were now, who have lost their jobs at the refineries?